It's your time for Chai with Nanise. Get ready for substance, clarity, change, and especially empowerment. Get ready to turn over stones, uncover stories, and get to the heart of the matter in every area of your life. Any mood runs, any emotion flies, and your dreams are within your grasp. There are no limits or boundaries, and your comfort zone is out of reach, yet it's the safest place you will ever be. Come in, sit down, and have some chai with Nanise.
I'm really, really excited about tonight's show because we're going to be talking about intuition. And not just intuition in general, but how to develop your intuition. My intention for tonight is to help you start thinking about in what areas your intuition has been speaking to you and you might not have been listening. And also in what ways you can improve your intuition. But first, I think we need to start a little bit about what intuition is. And I want to say to you that no matter how intuitive you think you are so much more intuitive, that every single person on this earth is intuitive. But over the years, since the time we were born and we grow up into adults, we are taught not to listen to our intuition. And tonight I'm hoping that you start thinking about your intuition in a whole new way and you start listening to it again. And I do say again because there was a time when you did listen to your intuition. And maybe that was when you were very little and didn't know to do anything else. I'd like to share a little bit about my personal history with intuition before we welcome our guests on tonight's show. And I was very, very aware of how intuitive I was as a child. In fact, I was so aware of it that I felt a little weird or odd because somehow I would know things that my parents didn't know or other kids didn't know. And so soon it became apparent to me that there was something different about me, and I started to keep it a secret. But over the years, I became more and more curious about it because no matter how hard I tried to suppress it, there was no way I could deny that there were things that I knew, that there was no way that I could possibly know them. And when I got to be about 12, I discovered an amazing thing. It was called the Public Library back in Queens, New York. And I spent every waking moment at the Public Library reading everything I could on intuition and spirituality and metaphysics. And by the time I was 13, 14, I was pretty much a little expert on these topics. But still, I kept it hidden because I didn't want other people to think I'm weird. You know what I mean. Well, something happened when I was about 17 years old. I was pregnant with my son, who's now 27, so it was many years ago. I'll let you do the math. And I found myself in a class, and the teacher was this extraordinary woman. Her name was Dottie Maxim, and she was an incredible psychic. I soaked every word she set up because she had some answers that I was looking for. And so every single week I would go to her house and sit in her class and just listen to her speak and answer my questions without even knowing what my questions were. But something else happened at that time, and it was that I began to trust my own intuition. I remember one night in particular, I was sitting in her class and I noticed what seemed like the ghost-like image of two children sitting on the floor near this woman's feet. And I kept staring at it thinking, am I crazy? Do I really see this? What's going on there? And within a few minutes, one of the other women in the class said, wow, do you see those two children sitting at so-and-so's feet? And at that moment, I knew that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't psychotic. That, in fact, if I saw something and someone else could see something that wasn't really there, then there was something to it. And not only did she see it and I see it, but then other people began to see it too. And it was at that moment that I decided that no matter what, I would trust my intuition, that I would listen to it. And even if I was wrong, that was okay. And that's a huge, huge journey to take when you're 17. But it's a journey that I've kept on. And now I trust my intuition more than anything. I don't think I make a move at any point during the day unless I intuitively know that it's correct. And that's also what I want to speak about tonight, how to use intuition in your life on a daily basis, how to make your life better based on your intuition. If you think that's exciting, wait until you meet my guest. She is the most extraordinary woman that I know, my dear friend Natalie Walsh. She is a psychotherapist and one of the most intuitive people I have ever known as well. She and I have spent extraordinary journeys traveling all over the world and have really not only shared our intuition but helped each other to develop our intuition. And so I'd like to bring you on the line now. Natalie, are you there?
I am. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here tonight. And I kind of feel like, that everybody's just on eavesdropping on one of our talks.
As has happened many times.
That is true. That is true because you and I spend 3+ hours every Sunday in Starbucks having incredible talks, and we have solved the world's problems, just so everybody knows, and working on our own and all that. And it's not really shocking to realize that people from 5-10 feet away suddenly get quiet because they're listening to us. So, right? So you're right. It's nothing new. Yeah. Well, Natalie, you and I have known each other many, many years, and we have spent a lot of time talking about intuition and developing our intuition. And in fact, I think one of the first times that we met, you were actually in one of my classes. Is that right? Do I remember that correctly?
That's right. And it's interesting when you talk about your experiences growing up because I, like you, hid it, but I began to even hide it from myself. For me, this was absolutely an uncomfortable experience to have. And I felt at some point in my young life decided that I was just being judgmental of other people. The things that I knew about other people when I would come in contact with them or speak with them or just even see them, I would just kind of know things about people, and I convinced myself that I was just being judgmental, and so I completely shut that off for a good portion of my life. And it wasn't until later that I began to realize, wait a minute, there is something much more to this. And that's when I began seeking out a community of people who could help me understand that. And hence the universe sent me into your world.
And I thank the universe every day for that, by the way. So,
myself included.
Yes. Yeah, and so you're right. It's very, very hard to develop your intuition on your own, especially when you're surrounded by people who shut it down or don't believe it or doubt it, which is a good part of the world. Yeah.
And, I think that there are different levels of belief. I think that a lot of people are absolutely hardline about it, that we are five sensory people. If it's not in a concrete form that you can see, touch, smell, hear, it does not exist. And then there's another group of people that say, sometimes I get a feeling about things, sometimes I have a sense in my gut about something, but, do I believe in psychics? No way. So I think it kind of goes along a continuum right up to where we have people that very actively believe and check in moment by moment to see if what they're doing, if the path they're going, if the things that they're thinking are in line with that.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting because I've noticed over the years that on that continuum that more and more people are becoming more and more open to the possibility that there is another way to sense things and understand things, and it opens up a whole new conversation. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can see that just in movies alone, just in television. You see movies like The Sixth Sense and Medium and The Mentalist, and there's all different ways of playing around with these ideas. How much of it is our innate ability as humans to perceive our environment? How much of it is beyond that? There's just a lot of interest in that right now, and we can see in our culture very much so. People are becoming more in tune with that particular vibe. Right.
Yeah. Another interesting thing that along the same lines that I've noticed over the years is that when I've become very, very open, a long time ago about who I am and what I do, and when people find out that, that I am an intuitive and I am a spiritual mentor and guide and all that very often they confide in me. And if I had a penny for every time I heard, I never told anybody this before, and they go on to telling me some incredible intuitive, psychic, or spiritual story. And I've come to believe that we all have these stories, that even the biggest doubter has some story buried in their closet about some incredible, unexplainable psychic event that's happened to them.
I agree with you. I see that in my practice. Very rarely do I find clients who don't have some experience with those types of things that they knew to be real, but could not explain in necessarily a scientific way or in a way that is more left brain, shall we say.
And your experience when they share those stories, are they looking for answers? Why do they share them with you, do you think, if they still have some doubt or uncertainty about it?
I actually agree with you that when people find that I am open to those ideas, they kind of look around a little bit as if, ooh, I hope no one else is watching.
Right.
And they say, well, there was this time, or, let me tell you about this. And it's like, I so resonate with that because it takes me back to a time in my life when I hid those things as well, when I was not comfortable admitting to other people that I saw things, I heard things, I felt things that turned out to be significant in later events. And, they're very relieved to have somebody to talk to about it, and particularly those individuals that have a lot of that. In certain religions, in certain family cultures, that's just not okay.
Right.
And how frustrating for people, how stifling and frightening even to have all of these senses about things and yet feel as though it's wrong. Feel as though something is wrong with you for having it. And I think that's what drives a lot of people into a therapeutic environment, is that they're needing this double check of what I'm feeling and thinking inside does not seem to match the reality outside, and I feel like I'm going crazy.
Right.
So it's nice to have, I think, a safe, open environment to explore that.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I think that what gets a lot of people stuck is that they can't make sense of it. That we are a society built on facts and figures, and I want to know how this works, and I want to know how that works, and if I don't understand how it works, then maybe it's not real, maybe it's my imagination. And a great metaphor for this is, you and I were talking through some devices that may even be wireless, that we're not even connected to anything, and people all over the world can hear us. Now, if we had if this had been 1,000 years ago and we were doing this, everybody would be afraid and go hide in their little caves or whatever they had 1,000 years ago, because it didn't make sense. But now we can make sense of it. And I think it's the same thing with intuitive or psychic ability, that once you understand that things can be transmitted, communicated, and received in ways that are not along the linear or logical understandings that we have today, then you can start opening your mind. And in fact, science and quantum physics is actually supporting this now, because, and I don't want to get too technical here because I'm the wrong person to do that, but from a basic understanding is that everything's energy. And if everything's energy, and even like the space between things, and that's energy, that must mean that somehow everything's connected. And if everything's connected, then there has to be some sort of communication going on. Just like there's a phone line, or it's like you're driving along, and maybe you're in the mountains, and your cell phone rings, and you answer it. And what's happening there? There's some kind of energetic connection that's going through the invisible. And the way that I think of psychic ability or intuition is the same way. There's something going through the invisible. And if you can just start wrapping your mind around that and just start creating the acceptance of that, then it starts becoming more normal.
I think that's such a great example, the whole idea of like a cell phone, because it reminds me of years ago when you and I were in Greece. And here we are, we're walking up the Acropolis, and my phone rings. And I pull it out, and there's my little 6-year-old son. Hi, Mommy, how you doing?
Yes.
And he's just gotten home, and I'm like, you know what? I'm right. And I'm looking around, and here we are in this magnificent place, and I'm trying to describe to him what I'm seeing, and he's telling me about his day, and Mommy, where's my such and such? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's over there. And it's so funny because 50 years ago, that would have been absolutely unheard of, that you could have had that experience, that he could have been in this time and place, and I'm in this time and place, and we're sharing these vastly different experiences in a very normal way, as if we were right next in the same room with each other. And so I agree that I think that idea of intuitive influences toward one another and communication will become as commonplace as cell phones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And isn't that fun? That's so much
goodness.
fun. And the thing is, when you really start trusting your intuition and you really listen to it, it becomes invisible. So, when I say I listen to my intuition at every turn and step I take, it's not like I'm sitting back, oh, what is my intuition telling me? It's that it's become so ingrained in who I am that it speaks to me beyond the mind chatter.
Yeah.
And I've learned to listen to it. So it becomes automatic. It becomes invisible once you master that. And that's possible for absolutely everyone. But I think the first step is just starting to trust it. And in fact, studies have shown that the number one thing that helps people be more intuitive is simply to trust and believe that they are, in fact, intuitive. Is that fascinating?
Yes. Even if you never have any evidence that proves
Yes.
you were right.
Yes.
Just trusting it, just continuing to go along and be open to that sensory awareness. Because that's
Yes.
really what we're talking about. We're talking about the ability to go beyond the five senses, which
Mm-hmm.
really anymore is not that unusual. It's
Right.
not that hard to believe. The more that we understand about the brain and about anatomy, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just even taking a look at some of the stuff, the HeartMath solution. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Book?
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's very fascinating because the research that they're doing there shows about the heart and the gut and how the neurons that are present in those areas are the same types of neurons that are present in subcortical regions of the brain. So
yes.
we literally have three intelligent systems working together. You have the
Mm-hmm.
solar plexus. When you hear people say, I have a gut feeling about this, I
Mm-hmm.
know my gut's telling me this.
Which you hear from a lot of men. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We take in information that we are not consciously aware of because our consciousness comes from very specific parts of our brain.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we have another intelligence system, which is the heart, which people
Yes.
say, my head is telling me one thing, but my heart says something different, and I'm not sure which way to go because we're taking in information that, again, we are not consciously processing. So that, in my mind, is
Yes.
more what intuition is
Mm-hmm.
it's the ability to know things without being consciously aware that we know them.
Right.
Because as we've discovered, we take in somewhere around 20,000 bits of information at any one time, but we are
Mm-hmm.
only consciously aware of roughly 40. I mean, if you
Amazing.
take a look around your environment right now, whether you're driving your car, whether you're at home, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're just kind of, whatever you're doing at the gym, if you look around, suddenly you're aware of where your hands are placed, maybe you're breathing, maybe the people that are around you, is it warm, is it chilly? You kind of begin to notice
Mm-hmm.
those things. And yet there are so many more things that your brain and the other intelligent parts of your body are taking in that you're not aware of. So suddenly you're having this really amazing feeling of do this, go here,
Yes.
look here, stop,
Yes.
notice. Suddenly
Yes.
a thought will come of someone that you haven't thought about for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, I got to remember to do that.
Yes.
Things just kind of come in. Where do those thoughts come from?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of an interesting idea when you begin to look at these different intelligence systems all working together that we're consciously unaware of.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think that our intuition is speaking to us 24/7, but we're not listening to it.
Yes.
That information really is coming through. And I think that one of the reasons that we don't listen to is because we don't really understand what it is, and we question it, and we doubt it, and we start saying, okay, is that just my imagination? Is that my fear? Am I making that up? And we don't know how to listen to our intuition.
Absolutely. I'm the biggest skeptic. You've known me for years. I mean, I have not gone easily down this road.
Well,
Kicking and screaming the entire way because
Yeah.
I just could not accept without proof.
Mm-hmm.
And, I so honor my spirit guides and my intuitive sense that it has just stuck with me and been generous in the obviousness of the messages that I've been given, because really anything short of that just did not work for me.
Right.
And, it reminds me, I think you and I talked some years ago about when my husband and I had made a huge change in our life. We ended up closing our business, selling our business, moving to a smaller house, really totally redesigning our life to be more of what we wanted it to be with our children.
Mm-hmm.
And I, talk about fear, talk about, we're seeing a lot of that now with the economy the way that it is and things that are kind of going on. There's a lot of fear out there. And so I'm thinking, I don't know, do I give up this house? Do I give up all this stuff? And it's amazing to me when I was going through that process, I was shocked each and every time that I had these very strong intuitive senses, yet still didn't believe it. Still had to wait for more.
Yes.
And you know what's so funny is the very last one, and I'd gotten messages. You know, if you really want to make a change in your life, you have to sell this car, which we just bought. Wow. It's brand new. You know, and boy, I fought that one for three messages, getting that, and I fought it. Put it in the paper, sold it the next day. The next message was, if you really want to make this change in your life, you need to sell your house. And I loved my house. It was wonderful. And so I had thought, okay, maybe this is something I should pay attention to. So I'm walking through my living room one morning, and I'm joking around, and I'm all alone, of course, and I just say out loud, listen, you know, I need a sign. If I'm going to make this huge shift, I need a sign. And I'm being kind of a smart aleck, right? And I was meeting with our insurance agent, going over the cafeteria plan for our company. And a few minutes later, the doorbell rings, and it's him, and I open the door, and the first thing he says to me is, oh, my wife just loves your house. She wanted me to ask you if there's any way you'd consider selling it. And from that moment on, I was a believer. And I looked at him and I said, funny you should ask, because that was exactly what I had asked for. And I still, you know me, even to this day, I still cringe. I still, you know, struggle sometimes saying what I sense, but absolutely I'm a believer.
Wow. Yeah. I love that story, and I know you have a million more, and you know, that's the interesting thing. When we start listening to our intuition, we get so many more things happening to us. There's so many more synchronicities and magical things. You know, we talk a lot about The Secret now. Everybody knows about The Secret. The Secret's no secret anymore. And I think one thing that people are missing, and there's many things. There's many reasons why The Secret doesn't work for a lot of people. But one of those things is people don't know how to listen to their intuition, because that is a huge, huge piece to what supports manifestation. Being able to listen to that little voice inside you, being able to follow the signs, being able to listen to your gut, being able to listen to those voices in your head. Yes, that does not mean you're crazy. We all have voices in our head. And you know, and making decisions based on your intuition, and that leads from one opportunity to another, and other doors open. And without that, without listening to your intuition, you take out a huge leg of what the secrets of The Secret relies upon. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And you know, as we're speaking, Natalie, I'm imagining that there's people out there thinking, okay, well, how do I do it? How do I do it? Yeah, I want to do it. How do I do it? And there really are certain steps and certain things that you can do to open up your intuition. We talked about one of them already, and that is simply believe and trust that you're intuitive.
Yeah.
Just try it out. Another one would be just start looking for the language that your intuition speaks to you in, because everybody has a different language. Example, for me, I might see something, I might get a vision in my head, I might get a feeling in my body, I might get a tingling sensation when I think of something as an acknowledgement that it's right. And you and I speak about that. I might suddenly, get like a physical pain somewhere if I'm not supposed to do something. I've heard a lot of people talk like that. Like every time I think about, going to move to Australia or whatever, I get a pain in my heart. Yeah. So, so the body talks to us. In fact, I think the body is one of the biggest intuitive vehicles that we have. Our bodies are constantly talking to us. And you, as you mentioned before, people's language, it's like, it doesn't feel right in my gut, or my heart hurts when I think about it, or, I've got a pain in my neck, or, there's so much language that we use. So part of listening to your intuition is listening to the language that you use, is listening to the signals your body's going to get you. One of my favorite signals, if I'm making a decision, and when I think about it, I suddenly feel very, very tired, or when I think about it, I suddenly feel very, very energetic, I go with that, because we will have the energy to do what will support us. And yes, there's exceptions to that. Sometimes we have fear and that blocks things, but as an overall rule, our energy will tell us which direction to go in. That's a huge, huge clue right there. Yeah. another thing to do is just become a non-judgmental observer. Stop judging all the thoughts. Stop saying, okay, that's my imagination. That's wrong. I'm crazy. Just cut that all out and just start listening, and start writing things down.
That was so the worst for me. You really helped me a lot with that. I remember when you and I, the first workshop that I did with you,
Mm-hmm.
I remember an experiment that you had us do, writing down.
Yes.
We each wrote down one question that we had on a piece of paper and folded it up and put it in an envelope, sealed it, no names. You took them, mixed them all up, passed them out, and then your instructions to everyone were exactly that. Don't censor. Whatever you see, whatever you feel, whatever images, whatever thoughts, just write it down. And that was hard for me. I had to keep reminding myself not to censor. And the most profound part of that was I kept writing and I kept thinking to myself, oh, this has got to be me. This is so much like me. These images I'm getting, these are from my childhood and this is from this. And I just thought, I'm obviously not doing this right. And it was about halfway through that it occurred to me, oh, I have myself.
Yes.
And I finished, and it was such an interesting experience seeing it all on paper. And then as you went through, I was the last one, and I could see after everyone had opened theirs, I knew halfway through that I had my own. And that's one thing that you've coached me with, I think very well over the years, is not to censor, to just let it be what it is and let the other person decide what works for them and what doesn't.
Right. Because a lot of that is that we get things through metaphors. And, we try to interpret them and judge them. And very often, our intuition's never wrong. It's always right. Our interpretations can be wrong. And that's what skill and trust brings us to a new level of, understanding what the intuition is trying to say. It's like going to another language, and it's another language. You know that people are trying to communicate with you, but it takes a while to understand the language. But once you understand the language, then it becomes easy and effortless. And, it's funny that you mentioned that little game, because it was a game that I used to like to play in this intuition class. I was teaching this intuition class called this Uncovering the Secrets of Your Intuition, just so everybody knows. And started playing this game where I would ask people, if you went to see a psychic, what would you ask them? And have everybody write it down, put it in an envelope. And the envelopes were sealed. And I told everybody that they would have to do a reading on the envelopes, on the question that they got in the envelopes. And people were like, oh, I don't know how to do that. And then when I told them they couldn't open the envelopes, because I think that was the little piece that you might have missed, Natalie.
Oh, there you go. That's right.
Yes. Yeah, when I told them that they couldn't open the envelopes and see the question, people would like, oh, I can't do this. And at that point, I would say, well, do it anyway and just make it up.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. You don't censor it. And it's funny because when I would tell people to just make it up, something would click. And the reason that I say make it up is because think about this. Okay, so when you make it up, you're imagining it. And when you imagine it, you're actually tuning into your imagination center, which is your third eye. It's also known as the eye of imagination. Your third eye is also your intuitive eye. So you're making it up, you're imagining it, you're using your intuition. It is the quickest and easiest way to get to intuition, just by making it up.
Bypass skepticism and critical thinking.
Exactly. Exactly. And so people are like, well, I'm just making it up. How could this be right? And my answer to that is so simple. Why are you making that particular thing up? Why aren't you making something else up? Of all the things in the world you can make up, why is it that?
Yes.
And, this exercise was also so powerful because, yes, people did they just trusted what would come up for them without judging it. And then they would just share that information unbiased with, the person whose question they had, which after, a little while they would find out. And then I would ask them to do an interpretation on it. And very often, once they just got the expression of, whatever came up out, then their interpretation was almost, I'd say 9 times out of 10 right on.
Yes.
And these are people who had no experience with intuition before and came to my class, and not necessarily you, but other people would come to the class saying, I'm not intuitive and I don't really know why I'm here. And I would say, well, you're here because you are intuitive and you want to learn how to use that.
Right.
But the interesting thing, too, is that you say you knew that you had your own question. I don't know how many times I've done this class, but when I would go around and have everybody pick an envelope, there was always one person that would say, and we're talking maybe 20, 30 people in class at times, and there was always one person who would say, what if you get your own question? And 100% of the time, it was always that person who got their own question.
Oh,
now,
really?
if that's not intuitive, I don't know what is. Yeah. It was very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
And I like the idea of having a place to work with that. You know, to find a group of people that are open to letting you play around with it. Because some people get kind of intimidated by it or they feel vulnerable by it, and so you may feel something or think something or have a sense about someone, and when you say it to them, they may react knee-jerkly, you know, I'm not that way, or I don't do that, and then you feel like, oh, I'm such an idiot, you know, I can't believe I said that, or I thought that, or I must be completely wrong, I'm not intuitive at all, when in fact, it's really the other person reacting to, wow, that hit a little close to home, and I'm not ready to be seen that way yet. And so to be able to find a group of people that you can share those things with, I think is extremely important to learning to trust it, to practicing it. Which is what's great about workshops like that you do, because it really does give people this wonderfully safe, free space to do that in.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a great suggestion. And I'm going to imagine that a lot of people are out there thinking, well, how can I do that? How can I create a group? And my suggestion would be just start asking your friends, you know, are you interested in developing your intuition? You know, would it be fun, you know, just to play these games and just, you know, create a safe environment with people that you trust? I remember when I was about 14 years old, one of the first crushes that I had, he lived like an hour away, and so we were forced to talk on the phone every night. You know, my parents loved that and the high phone bill as well. But we would play these games. He was very intuitive and psychic as well, and so we would play these games, and I'll tell you about two of them very simply. One of them was we would both have a deck of cards, and at the same time, we count 1, 2, 3, and we'd each like randomly pick a card. 90% of the time, we picked the same exact card. It was amazing, and so that helped me begin to trust my intuition. It was non-threatening. It was safe. It didn't matter if I was wrong. Didn't matter if he was wrong. And then we started playing this other game that was really intense, and we would decide that at a certain time we would think of each other. So it may be like 10 o'clock at night or whatever it was, and we wouldn't call each other. We would just, you know, sit down, meditate, and think about each other, and and our goal was to come up with the same numbers. 3 of the same numbers, anywhere from 1 to 100. And then the next day we would talk. And the very first time we played this game, we got 3 out of 4 of the same numbers.
Wow.
And when you have that kind of success, you can't doubt it anymore. You can't doubt it. And so, yes, so Natalie, you're absolutely right. You know, find some people that you can safely play with and just make a game out of it. You might also want to look, you know, in your community to have, you know, an intuitive or a psychic come and, you know, play some games with you, or find a class at the university or whatever. But just find ways that are safe to start exploring it, because it can absolutely change your life. But wouldn't you say so?
Oh, my goodness. Absolutely. No question about it. And I was just thinking, too, you know, you look at some of these bookstores that are around, the spiritual, the New Age bookstores, they've always got stuff going on. They've always got bulletin boards. It would be very easy to post something there, post something online that might, you know, generate some interest of other people in your area. But, you know, it brings up an interesting point when you were talking about the numbers and doing that kind of stuff. And I go, what's the difference between being psychic and being intuitive? Because I look at that and I think, to me that feels as though it borderlines a little bit on the psychic rather than the intuitive. What's your take on that?
Great question. Thank you for asking that, because I have a metaphor for that. Because I was asked that question for years, and I didn't have a good answer. And then finally I got a good answer. Okay, so this is the difference between a psychic and an intuitive. Okay, so an intuitive has a sense that there's someone on the other side of the closed door. A psychic has a sense there's someone on the other side of the closed door and knows exactly who it is.
Interesting.
And so it's just, you know, it's that continue again. It's that a level. So we all
Yeah.
have the ability, we are all intuitive. And, just like, some people can paint really well and people like me who could barely draw a stick figure, we can all
That's
draw
me.
something. We can all, yeah, we can all paint something. But there are certain people who are better at it, that are more gifted at it. So I would say a psychic is just someone who has a gift in the area of intuition.
Maybe just even almost, I don't know, I look at your example of painting is excellent, because when you begin to look at the difference in anatomy and physiology, the fine motor skills, a lot of that is genetic, the way that the eyes, the cones and rods, and the difference in being able to perceive color, and the way that the brain is structured in such that you can retrieve bits of information or see things versus being able to track movement, things like that. So
Right.
I wonder in this case, maybe it has something to do with having a little bit more sensitivity to one sense over another. Or maybe somebody takes in more information, has the neurological ability to take in more information versus someone else. I mean, we know brain science, we know different parts of the brain are bigger in some people than others. Males, of course, the sexual center of the brain is 2.5 times bigger than the female's part of the brain.
Only 2.5 times?
Well, still every, 58 seconds has a sexual thought versus every 2 days or something for a woman.
Yeah. And I wonder how they know that.
They actually have studied that. They can see it on a scan. So,
Wow.
But I look at that and I think, if you have in the neurons of the heart or the neurons of the solar plexus, if you're someone that area is much bigger for you, that you have more neurons in that area, or maybe that's genetic, or maybe because someone like you who have had early experiences with this that have been positive, you've been able to create more neurons, because of course now we know that the brain can create more neurons, so it stands to reason that other parts of the body would be able to as well. So I think you're right. I think we all have the capacity to do it, but some have the capacity to do it to a greater degree or greater accuracy than others.
Yes. That's beautifully said. And you don't have to be a gifted psychic or an expert in psychic ability for it to change your life. Just learning to use your intuition, on a daily basis in simple, subtle ways is absolutely life-changing.
And we look at it in every area of our life, as a parent, as a friend, as a spouse, as a child, in all these different areas in our practice. When I am sensing something from a client, I can save us both a ton of time by just beginning to address this right off the bat. And my clients will say to me frequently, how did you know to ask me that?
Yes.
And I'll have a client come in and I'll say, tell me about work. And she's like, how did you know I was having a problem with work? And I don't know how I knew that. It just came, it was just a sense. And with our children, when your child comes home and they're a little, something is not quite right. And they're at that age where they're not going to talk to you about it. So if you can really kind of intuit what is going on, you're going to save both of you a lot of irritation in the poking around process. Because nothing irritates kids more than when you're trying to pry into their personal lives. If you can bypass that, I'm all for it.
And it really freaks them out when you know things that you should know, especially when you get to teenagers. That's really fun. If there's no other reason to develop your intuitive ability, it's for that, right?
It's so true. That leverage is priceless.
It is. It's worth everything. Yeah. But no, you're absolutely right. And that's how I work with my clients too. So, people ask me, oh, do you do readings? And I used to. I don't do readings anymore, but when people come to me for life coaching or spiritual coaching, I use my intuition to know what to ask them, to know what direction to go in. And it is so effective and totally extraordinary. Yeah. Absolutely. You are so right. You mentioned the thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was actually using it as a segue to go somewhere else. So
that's all right. Go ahead and go. I'll follow you.
Okay, great. We always follow each other all over the world.
Yes,
so
yes, we do. I love that too as friends. When one of us has a feeling, we all just go with it. We really, if one of us gets a sense about something, we just know there's a reason for it, and it always shows up somehow. That's just fascinating.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of when we were in Italy just last April, and we decided to wing it and not have any reservations or plans past the first couple of days. And we rented the car, and one of us, who was it? Was it you who thought we were going to end up sleeping in the car because we didn't have a reservation anywhere?
That was
Oh
me.
yeah,
I was
that
like,
was you.
okay, I'm preparing myself to sleep in the car. It is
Yes.
10:30 at night. We are lost.
Yes,
on our
we
way
were lost.
from
I was driving.
no less.
Yes.
Driving from Naples to the Amalfi Coast. Yeah.
First
I
Rome
was
to
pretty
Naples
sure.
for the pizza, and then to the Amalfi Coast. But we didn't even know we were on the Amalfi Coast. That was how lost we were. Yeah. And I remember
I'm
you
pretty
saying,
sure
we're
we
going
were
to.
sleeping in the car.
Yeah, you kept saying that, and I said, that is not in my reality. Stop saying that. And you were like, okay. And then I told you my reality, and my reality was that there was an innkeeper somewhere waiting for us, expecting us, and that we would pull in, and he would come out with his arms open and says, welcome, I've been expecting you. And I know you were thinking, okay, she's nuts.
I was
All right,
skeptical. I
I'm
will
curling up
admit
and
it.
back. Yes. And I remember driving along this coastline and passing one place after another, and they all either had no vacancy or there was like actually a fence that you couldn't even get in, like the gates were closed. Don't come in here.
Right.
And I was traveling past another, and I'm thinking, oh, I hope she's not right. I hope she's not right. No, it's not in my reality. We are sleeping in a nice place. And then I started passing places that were possibilities, and all of a sudden, with beyond thought, I just pulled into a hotel parking lot. And we pulled down, and remember Luigi was waiting for us, and he didn't speak any English. And he sent us down.
On the name Luigi.
Okay.
I'm
We have to
having a little
pause?
bit of trouble hearing you. You're cutting out a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping I hear you fine. So I'm hoping that our
excellent.
listeners can hear us fine. So, okay.
That
So
sounds good.
and then
Very good.
oh, excellent. And we drove down to the entrance of this little inn, and you remember what happened next? That Italian man, beautiful
Yes.
Italian man, came out, and what did he say?
He said, "I've been expecting you." Arms wide
Yes.
open. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. We just looked
Yes.
at each other, and you just looked at me like, "See, don't you ever doubt me again." And
Yes.
and that was one of those moments when I just said, "Okay, I'm on board." Now, I think the interesting thing for me is that our friend who was with us, she really
Yes.
had a desire to stay in a convent. She really wanted this authentic Tuscan experience of staying in a convent, and she had been talking about that. I, on the other hand, really thought it would be lovely to be able to go out onto our balcony and look out over this gorgeous coastline and just have this experience. So as he's taking us in and he's showing us the room that he has available, we walk in, and first thing I do is I go, okay, we are in a convent. This was very sparsely furnished.
Yes.
And, of course, I went into the bathroom because just had to check and make sure that there was actually plumbing in there.
Yes.
And you said to me, Natalie, come out here. And I walk out, and you open these two French doors, and out we walk onto this incredible balcony with this magnificent view and the beautiful starlit night, the moon shining over the water, the lights of all of the little houses around. I mean, it was just absolutely everything I had pictured it to be. So not only did we manage to get a place, we managed to get both the convent and the beautiful view of the ocean in the same place.
Yes.
I don't doubt anymore.
Yes. Yeah, after that trip, and literally it was one miracle after another. How could you doubt? And whether, we never really spoke, that whole trip, the 2 weeks that we spent just driving all over Italy, we never spoke about, what's your intuition telling you? It's just, that's just what is. It's just, really trusting and being able to listen to it. And I think about that trip often, as I know you do, and our other dear friend who was with us on that trip does. And what strikes me most is just how magical it was. And I think that the reason that it was so magical is that when you go away to another country or to another space or place and you surrender your idea of the way things have to be and you just allow and start listening to your senses, that's when all the magic starts kicking in. That's when the miracles start happening. And truly every day was a miracle. And we can do a whole show just on talking about the miracles in Italy, because it was just
Yes.
like that. And, if we had it, the three of us, if we had not gotten to the place where we had already developed our intuition to such a highly sensitized state, there's no way that we could have created or been a part of that experience.
I absolutely agree. And I was just going to say, I think what you said earlier about that it becoming not a conscious process, that it's just something that is a part of thinking, a part of feeling, becomes a part of your experience.
Yes.
It's almost like to not have it becomes what pops up when you're not paying attention to it, or when it's not there. That's what becomes noticeable after you've practiced for a while, versus in the beginning, those few moments when it pops up, it surprises you, and that's the unusual. So that's the great part about a practice, is that it literally flip-flops toward the end, where not having it becomes unusual.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Totally agree. I actually have an email here from one of our listeners, and I think it would be a lot of fun if we would address that. And it says, here we go. Dear Denise, I often have a sense that I should do something or not do something, but I never seem to listen to it. But my sense always seems to turn out right, and then I regret not listening to myself. How do I know when it's my intuition talking or just my fear or desires? And how can I better listen to my intuition and make better choices? Thanks, Barbara. What do you think we should tell Barbara here?
Well, I relate to Barbara. That's exactly
okay.
In the beginning for me. Yeah, it might as well have my name on that. I can go this way, I can go that way. I don't know if I do this, if I do that, and I get so caught up in the contemplation of it, in the thinking of it, that I forget to check in with the feeling of it. And sometimes I think you and I have done this together. We do a pathway. We go down one road. How does that feel? Any thoughts come up on that? Any vision? Yes. Sometimes we will see things unexpected on a road when we are imagining ourselves going down that road that we wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And vice versa, we go down the other road. How does that feel? What things come up there that we didn't anticipate? And then when you sit with that, instead of cognitively processing, now I'm all about cognitively processing. I think that's a great tool that we have, but it is by no means the only tool in the toolbox. And when we only use that, it's like going around with a hammer, using a hammer for every job we want to do. I need to write a letter. I'm going to use this hammer. I need to help my kid. I'm going to use this hammer, So I think we forget that we have all of these other tools at our disposal.
Yeah. I absolutely agree.
What would you say?
Well, the first thing that I would say to Barbara, if she was here sitting with me now, is that I would say, allow yourself to be wrong. That there's no way that you're ever really going to get in touch with your intuition until you allow yourself to be wrong. And I've given clients and people that have taken classes from me an assignment that they must be wrong 5 times a day. And what that does, and it's hard. And I have people coming back.
I was only before breakfast this morning.
Yeah. And we think it's so wrong to be wrong, but the only way that you're going to get in touch with who you are and your intuition is to allow yourself to be wrong, because then it becomes a checks and balances. And when you are wrong, use it as feedback. And so what I would suggest, Barbara, is that you start journaling, and every day you write down what your intuition or what you think your intuition is telling you, how it's telling you. Is it a voice? Is it a vision? Is it a feeling? Is it a sound? Is it a sense? Write down how you think it's coming through, what you think it's saying, and then write down what happened as a result of it. So if you listen to it, it was true, or if you were wrong, and if you were true, great, give yourself a gold star, and if you happen to be wrong, see how you can correct the feedback. So look at the feedback, like, was it that your intuition was wrong, but then you didn't interpret it right, or you missed a little piece of your intuition that was telling you here. And so just keep doing this day after day until you start to get a bigger picture on how your intuition is speaking to you. And what the success rate is, and when you're wrong, why are you wrong? Because you might start seeing a pattern there. And when you're right, why you're right? Because you'll start seeing a language there. And after a very short period of time, you will become an expert at listening to your own intuition, and life will never be the same again. I promise.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that's
so we have
good
about
advice. I mean, I remember you giving me that advice as well. You know, saying, go to those moments when you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this was true. You couldn't prove it, you didn't know it, but you knew it. And how did that feel? Where did you feel it in your body? What was that experience like? Was it something you heard? Was it something you saw? Was it something you felt? And then how did this experience, right or wrong, whether you were right or wrong, how did that one compare? Where did you feel it? What did you hear? Did you see? Were you trying to manufacture something? You know, and begin to look at it and that's where I think the cognitive comes in very nicely, to begin to understand your own individual process, because it is different for everyone.
Yes, it is very different for everyone. And just as we're all different, and I think that's the exciting piece. And what happens also is that when you start listening to your intuition more, it gives other people the ability, the permission to listen to their intuition more. And when that happens, you start creating relationships that are absolutely amazing and magical. And we get to start communicating on a whole new level that supports us in the kind of life that we really want and desire. Yeah. And I think we're just about out of time, Natalie, but oh my God, we will definitely continue this show at another day and time without a doubt, because we didn't even get to a fraction of what we could talk about regarding intuition. And so I thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was so much fun, and we will talk again soon. And I just want to thank everybody for listening, and come back next week, and I'll be here waiting for you. And I've so enjoyed, having chai with you tonight. Good night, everyone.
Thank you for having chai with Nanis. Please go to www.nanis.com for great free stuff that will empower you to live your best possible life. Free books, articles, shows, meditation audios, and so much more at nanis.com. That's NANICE.com. Nanis's books are also available in all major bookstores and Amazon. Check out The Infinite Power of You, Even Gandhi Got Hungry and Buddha Got Mad, Zest Point, Lip Prints, and many others by Nanis Ellis. To find out about one-on-one coaching and how Nanis can personally coach you to experience your best life possible, please email mybestlife@nanis.com.